stacks on her mind, grinding all day, hustle refined, chatter is ceiling, G steers and obtain, boss is a title, wealth is a game.
Now, for those of you who've been on this journey with me for a while, you know I love connecting music with the topic that we're going to discuss today. And honestly, it's so fun to be a DJ. That's actually a pretend DJ, let's be clear, on the show. And we were listening to the sounds of Sarah Bareilles. And I was asking our guest today if you know this song. It's called Brave. And as soon as I came across this song, it really resonated so much for me today, because I'm an 80s kid and I actually love digging into lyrics of songs. And this song had so many captivating lyrics of a woman encouraging us to be brave. Have you ever heard this song before, Mary Lou? Out of curiosity.
No.
Yeah, check it out. Well, I think of the times we're living in right now, and what a call out, really, be brave in these crazy times. So I just want you to check out the lyrics, because I did. And it says, a part of the song, it says, since your history of silence won't do you any good, do you think it ever would? Let words be anything but empty. Why don't you tell them the truth? Say what you want to say and let your words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave. And I just thought, wow, that's just crazy. These lyrics are just crazy. Such a powerful message and so fitting for our special guest today. So Mary Lou, this is a song that really inspired me for you today. And I'm thrilled to introduce you to a woman redefining really what it means to lead with courage and with conviction. And you're doing it in the fight for food health and safety. Mary Lou McDonald, welcome. She's the president of Safe Food Matters, Inc. And this organization is a national not-for-profit organization that challenges government and corporate practices around food safety, especially the use of chemicals and pesticides that might impact our health. Mary Lou has become a passionate advocate for transparency, accountability, and safer food choices in the food we eat every day. And I also know her as a lawyer by training. She's also a strategist and a leader who's taken on some of the largest regulatory bodies in Canada. So I cannot wait for you to hear her story. Mary Lou, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Jackie. Really great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, tell me, that's really awesome. It's really crazy, right? To actually be in this particular moment and be talking about being brave. But before we actually on a completely different career track before Safe Food Matters. And I didn't even know that you had this whole other business going. So why get into all of this?
Well, actually, I've always had the belief that one can save the world, and make money. And it just took me a while to be able to concentrate on saving the world a bit more than my legal career. But I've been a trained lawyer for 30 years and was mostly in corporate law for 20 years of that. Started in oil and gas at Calgary, and then my goal there was to try and get into renewables. Moved out to Ontario and was able to move up in the renewable space, and became general counsel and in-house counsel for some big public companies. So through that, I gained a lot of business experience, but I'd always kind of dabbled in the save the world side, if you will, and they're not mutually exclusive. I'd done some writing in law school and all that type of thing, and had worked on a file on the weekends, so to speak, where I was volunteering for eco-justice. But then it was time to start thinking about retirement, and thankfully you were a great help in that regard. And I was able to spend more time really working on this passion of mine. I founded Safe Food Matters actually while I was still working as a corporate lawyer. And what had happened was Health Canada's PMRA, what had happened is Health Canada's Pest Management Regulatory Agency published a document saying that they were going to re-register a pesticide called glyphosate, which is the main pesticide in Roundup. And that kind of annoyed me because I knew that this wasn't a great pesticide. I had been following the file because I was interested in genetically modified foods for various reasons. And I recognized that this was going to get into the foods that my niece, who was an infant, was going to be eating, because I knew this pesticide moved into cereals like bran and Cheerios and that type of thing. So I said, well, somebody should do something about that.
Really?
And
Wow.
yeah. And the do something about that made me lean on my competency, which was legal and legal organization, so to speak. So I formed a company so that we would have a corporate veil, and basically got on with and created the corporation Safe Food Matters. I did that because I understood that and had been part of the genetically modified food movement, or against genetically modified foods. And I recognized that what I saw was just a bunch of protesting that was getting nowhere. So that frustrated me, and I wanted to make some real change. So I thought that getting a corporation together and actually suing, legal advocacy, legal activism was the way to make some real change. Why? Well, call me a delusional lawyer, but I don't. I really believe in the law. The law has some really good principles if you just stick with it.
Well,
And
you've taken on some of these major corporate companies and won. So I just think to myself, you saying I wanted to make sure my niece didn't have to, ingest things like glyphosate and I was thinking Cheerios has stuff like this. But before we get into all of this, I just think to myself that founding and leading a not-for-profit like Safe Food Matters can't be for the faint of heart, because you have gone up against some powerful players, big corporations, regulators, even government agencies. So tell me what your biggest challenge has been in that fight, and how do you keep the courage going,
On the courage side, I don't see myself as brave. It's just more of a need. I need to do this, and I have the skills to do it. And it's how I can contribute to saving the world, which has always been my personal philosophy. So I don't call it courage, just more that I wouldn't pass my deathbed test, which is what I call it. And that is when I'm on my deathbed and I look at myself, am I going to be proud of what I've done, or am I going to be disappointed that I didn't take the steps that I should have when I had the ability to? And then what's kept me going? Pure stupidity, perhaps.
Well, the deathbed test is a powerful litmus test, I feel, because you're talking about like purpose, like really greater purpose, right?
I recognize it's a long game, and that law moves at a slow pace. So going in with that knowledge has prepped me for the expectations that this would take a long time. But because I think it's the only way to make change, I'm willing to stick in there for the long game.
So it sounds like you don't consider yourself brave. I do. And you're like, well, it's my deathbed test. It potentially is, my naivete. But more than anything, it sounds like it's your heart. Like you want to make a contribution to this world. And that's huge. I think that's powerful. The fact that you're really clear that you want to make an impact before you leave this earth. So, and I just think one of the things that struck me about your work is just also how much you're creating awareness and empowering everyday people. So, what would you say for women who are listening, and many of them are high earners and decision makers? What should we be paying closer attention to when it comes to our food? Because you were talking about the whole Cheerios thing, and I was like, whoa, I just saw my partner's grandchildren digging into some Cheerios on the weekend. What should we be paying closer attention to when it comes to our food?
Just be aware that food is the new playing ground for selling stuff to us and making money. And so they are products. They're trying to make products to sell us out of food. And some of these products can be harmful to our health. So when it comes to seeing a food, and the closer it is to its natural form, the more healthy it is. And just with that as a guiding principle, take a look at whatever you're buying and say, how close is this to being how Mother Earth would have given it to us? Has it been altered? And if it's been altered, in my experience, the science isn't hard on this yet, but if it's been tweaked with processing, et cetera, then it's not as bioavailable to us. So even though it may be all this great protein objectively, it may not be incorporated into our body because it's not part of the whole food. Has there been anything sprayed on it? And if so, what part of the plant are we eating? Because the first lawsuit I got into was about something called desiccation, which is spraying glyphosate on products that are growing in large fields for purposes of harvesting it just before harvest. Basically, they're killing it so that we can pick it up more easily and time their harvest time. And what happens there is that the pesticide moves right into the seeds that are still growing. So if you're eating seeds that have been sprayed pre-harvest, which is likely if they are commercially harvested, then don't try not eat the seeds. So, for example, what are seeds that we eat? Beans, peas, wheat, bran. Those are, if it's a seed, then be aware. And for those, choose organic because that means no pesticide. Our main lawsuit was about the fact that in chickpeas, basically, Health Canada analyzed the glyphosate and re-registered it in 2017, but they didn't look at the fact that it actually translocates or moves into the seeds when you spray pre-harvest like this. And there was starting to be some glimmerings in the science that this can cause very high levels of the pesticide, and they hadn't examined that. So that was really what we were looking at. And I also pointed out to them that the consumption of hummus had like was a bazillion times more in
gosh,
2007.
Yeah. I'm a huge hummus fan.
Yeah. I can't hear you that great, Chip, Jackie.
Oh, I was gonna say you mentioned the consumption of hummus. If it's in the seed, like beans, peas, legumes, wheat, some of the things you were mentioning, that when they spray right directly into the seed, they're killing some of these things so they can take them off the fields easy. That they get even further and further into the plant, and consumers like ourselves wouldn't know that. And then we were talking about like a being like hummus, where you're not having a few, you're having like the hummus, right? You're like having like, the hummus spread, which means you're eating way more beans.
Yeah, it's ironic, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because you try to eat healthy, and so you bring legumes and a plant-based diet home, and guess what? These plants sometimes aren't as healthy as you think. So just be aware of that, and then in those cases, it's worth the extra, even if it is extra, to buy organic and or make your own. Like I buy bulk beans and peas because I'm a pescatarian. I don't eat meat, so I rely on beans and rice for a lot of my protein sources, and cheese and things like that. But
right. but yeah, you wouldn't know. So it's, I think that's probably the thing when you're a busy person and you think that if you buy organic, it should be fine, but you don't necessarily know. I think a lot of people are still trying to figure out what they should be buying organic, and it's sounding like beans, peas, wheat, legumes are
Yeah.
definitely a good start.
If it's a seed and from North America, because in North America, US and Canada uses pre-harvest. Europe doesn't allow pre-harvest desiccation with glyphosate anymore, but they don't have the massive fields that we do in Saskatchewan. What's interesting is, for example, we're big on trade right now, and we are the number one. We're in the top two, if not the number one exporter of lentils in the world. And guess what? We pre-harvest, desiccate, or use it on weed control for all of that. So, someone should be letting India know. Check
You're saying so that we can potentially access more healthful version, hopefully, of beans, peas, and legumes is what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, and if anybody has the energy and time, create a market for that stuff and plant organic, because especially those areas are going to, I believe, just skyrocket as this message gets out more.
Well, yeah, and I think the education piece. So tell me a little bit more about Safe Food. So you're going up against these giants, right? These corporate giants say, hey, the way you're making our food, what you're putting in our food isn't good, and trying to get them to take things out of the food. What does that process actually look like? And does a part of that include education for people like us who don't even really, we think we know what's in our food, but do we really know?
Well, let me be clear that I'm not taking on Monsanto and the corporation.
Okay.
I'm not crazy, although I said I was earlier. But my focus is on the regulator, is on Health Canada, because it's in the nature of a corporation, unless it's directed to follow the law and make money. And they're not all bad actors, and they're not all good actors. Just like people, you have some that are bad actors and some that aren't. And there are a lot of responsible agricultural companies that are trying to do the right thing. It's the regulator that is subject to influence and that is letting stuff slip through the cracks, intentionally or not. That is our focus, because they're the ones that are supposed to be protecting us. That's the mandate under the Pest Control Products Act from the risks of pesticides. And they're supposed to examine the science in relation to both the hazards and the exposure of Canadians and the environment to it. So if these harmful things are slipping through the cracks, it's on them, in my view. And so my goal was to try and target them, and what is it about them that's allowing this to and at first I thought it was just, they made a mistake, they just missed it. That was in 2017 when I first sued. And now from what I see, at least for Health Canada, in particular the Pest Management Regulatory Agency, is that they are somewhat defensive when it comes to their mandate of protecting Canadians' health, and they really seem to be aligned with the agricultural file, which is fine, but we have Ag Canada to do that. And they're doing a fine job at promoting genetically modified and pesticide food for, the lines of feeding the world and all that stuff, which I won't get into, because I'm not a huge believer that those are that accurate. Because you want to the best way to feed the world is to grow crops in good soil, which means not harming it. But I won't get into that. It's really about and trade. PMRA is also really some of the underlying narrative is about trade. So we need somebody they need to do their job and step up and actually protect Canadians and look at these risks in those contexts, which must be difficult for them, and they do not have the personnel that they need. But I think that legal activism and pointing out to them repeatedly, or to the public repeatedly, that this stuff slipping through the cracks is the way to go to try
Yeah,
and make change. So,
right. And I wonder, so it's important. I'm glad you made that distinction. So not corporations, you're actually taking on the people who are supposed to be not just rubber stamping these regulations around what's in our food, but they're acting as good stewards around making sure and protecting us, as you said, from bad actors in this space who might be not having the care and thinking maybe about the profit and the bottom line when it comes to what's in our food. So one of the things I wanted to ask is if we go to your website, what kind of information can people expect to see to kind of educate them more about what's happening with their food?
well,
Something Mhm.
what you will see is a lot of history and legal explanations of where we are on the files, on Safe Food
Okay.
Matters files, and we aren't, to be frank, educating as much, but the education is part of the science behind the legal activism. So I make sure that we're very thorough on that, on the scientific aspect of it. And the reason that we speak through the lens of policy and legal activism as opposed to education is that we're actually a charity. And
Right.
the CRA is very particular about staying within the four corners of your charity purposes. And we're not an educational charity. We are a policy change charity. So that's
Right.
where we spend most of our time. But I'm very aware from being a lawyer that reputation is everything, and I make sure that when we write an article or a post that it's truthful and that the arguments are valid and that the science, which we often get into, I often end up having to, I choose to counter the scientific narrative of Health Canada with countering science or flaws in their methodology. I make sure that that's accurate. And I think that that's stood me in good stead. I think we're getting a bit of a reputation. For example, we just wrote a report. I just wrote a report on behalf of Safe Food Matters called Forest Spraying and Forest Food, and showed how the fact that Health Canada has allowed uh, uh, companies to spray glyphosate on forests is actually contaminating the berries that are harvested by foragers, including Indigenous peoples. And I was able to give them the stats in terms of what the levels are in the berries because of some great science that's come out of Western Canada, and some stats in terms of what their own studies show the levels are. Their own studies show the levels are up to 20 parts per million per berry, and they say that, and the legal limit is 0.1, 0.2. So we're I mean, but you have to, I like finding, it takes a lot of work. You've got to look at the confidential test data and dig for it, but it's usually there, like the principle's usually there, that, there is science to make your point. And if you point it out to the regulator and they ignore it, then you know you have some kind of problem going on. And,
Right.
and you push a bit further and consider legal action.
Well, it's I'm just happy that you're there on our side, Mary Lou, to tell you the truth. I really appreciate that. I want to know what's the story, or what's the initiative that you've done in this space that you're most proud of?
Won in the Federal Court of Appeal. And in our very first case, and our very first, I mean, we haven't had a lot. Our very first case was I wrote a notice of objection, Safe Food Matters, and wrote a notice of objection to the registration of glyphosate, pointing out, like I said earlier, hey, this stuff's moving into the seeds. You guys need to look at that. And they didn't. And so I wrote a notice of objection within the time frame that was allowed for that under the Act. They rejected it after 2 years, as well as those of other groups. And so I sued on that and lost, and then went to the Federal Court of Appeal, and it was the very first case under the Pest Control Products Act that went to the Federal Court of Appeal. And
Right.
It's quite astounding because I wrote that thing when I was visiting my mom in Calgary all night, and went and delivered it and sued for my first time, shaking in minus 30 degrees weather. Because I mean, oh my God, I'm suing Health Canada. What am I, crazy? Again, we have this theme of crazy. And then that case ends up going all the way to the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal said, hey, Health Canada, look at her objection again. They did. They rejected it again. So we're suing again. So my little shaking, sea train, freezing cold Calgary written in mom's basement case is still ongoing 8 years later.
I love that. And I'm so grateful, because I think going back to, are you brave? Are you crazy? I feel like you need to be a little crazy to be fully brave. Like you need to kind of embrace a little bit of the crazy to be brave, because sometimes it makes you question to your core, do I have what it takes to do this? And you do, clearly. And we're with you.
You know what? It's quite interesting though, because it's quite interesting that just by doing what I learned in grade 1 law school, you can go this far. So the fear is unnecessary. I mean, for one of the law firms I worked with, I also went to Kazakhstan, and you have the fear, but as soon as you do it, you just kind of it's like jumping off the high diving board. As soon as you do it, it's like, oh, that was easy. That's not as hard as I thought. And that's basically what courage is. So just jump off the high diving board.
It is. And I heard one of my mentors, she was kind of talking about this whole idea of being brave. And she's like, you don't have to let the fear lead you. Just let it be beside you. Don't let it lead you. Let it be beside you. And I love that.
Yeah.
Because it means it's not driving you from not doing the things you need to do. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I follow a lot of Buddhist principles, and fear can actually be your friend, because it tells you what there might be a danger of, but you just need to put it beside you, or put it where it belongs. Like, don't let it overtake you. Just kind of, okay, I'm scared. Yeah.
Exactly. So as I said, there's something about being crazy that I feel like you kind of have to embrace. But I know our listeners are ambitious women who also want to live healthier, longer, more purposeful lives. And you're talking about like the essential piece, right? Which is the food that we put into our bodies to nourish us, to keep us healthy. So if there's one change that some of these women could make today in their relationship with food, what do you think would be the biggest impact that they could do?
Adopt the principle I referenced earlier, which is just try to eat as close to foods that are as close to how Mother Earth would have given them to you. And that as a principle will make you more healthy, I believe. And that requires application of critical thinking when you're making your food choices. That staged approach. Has it been sprayed? Has it been modified? That type of thing. And it takes some research, because some of the additives, they have code names for different things. For example, natural flavorings actually can be genetically modified. So you're not going to see natural flavorings in organic food, because the organic standard in Canada is also non-genetically modified. So you're safe on the GM and the natural flavoring side if you eat organic. But so just try and educate yourself about things like that. But of course, it's not, that kind of information isn't that available. So as a principle, again, just eat what Mother Nature how she would have given it to you.
Yeah, it's as you were saying that, I was thinking it's the difference between mindless eating and mindful eating. You know what I mean? Because mindless eating, I sometimes come in from a long day and I'm just putting one potato chip after the next in the mouth, not thinking too hard, right? Don't know what's on the ingredients list. It could be long. Or, that time when you go into the grocery store and you're thinking, what is a whole food? It's an apple, hopefully an organic apple. You know what I mean? Not everybody can access that, or it's right now it might be the vegetables you're growing in your garden, right? If you have a garden. Sometimes I see a lot of apartment dwellers creating these sort of hydroponic Anyway, there are ways around it, and I just think it's that whole idea of whole foods and mindful eating and thinking through, as you said, how close to the way that it was actually created can we eat our food? How less
Yes.
processed can we go versus the mindless
Yeah.
eating? That okay, I'm the first to admit I've been there, done that as well.
Oh, me too. Oh my God. Like, yeah,
Nobody should be
absolutely.
beating themselves up for that
No,
community.
my favorite food group is nachos.
Hey, I'm there with you, and it's not really about passing judgment on the way that people eat, but really trying to get them to be more mindful about what they're putting in their bodies. And this is really pulling back the curtain for a lot of people who don't necessarily understand what all these terms mean. Organic, what exactly is organic? Unless you dig into it, you know, I didn't know about Monsanto's and glyphosate until I read an article a few years ago. But I thought for the most part we were safe in Canada. So I'm just so thrilled to have you on the show that we're talking about this. And yes, you are definitely one of those people who need to be recognize we all see you putting on your cape and fighting this battle for us every day in the field. So thank you. We really appreciate it. But before I wrap up, I want to do some quick fire round questions with you. And you just tell me the first thing that comes to mind, okay? Are you ready?
Oh, yep, I hope I can hear you okay. Go for it.
Okay, no problem. Since this is a money show, and thank you for the purpose I get is hearing that helping you to retire, that you could do this sooner. So I'm so grateful to hear that that's giving you time to do some of these things that turn around benefiting all of us. So anyway, since this is a money show, what's one word that sums up what money means to you?
With the word money,
What one word summing up what money means to you?
I think limitless. It's or it follows the cause. In law, we have a concept, it follows the cause, which means if you win a case or if you lose a case, you've got to pay the costs. Costs follow the cause. Well, money follows the cause. So if the cause is right and the principle is right, the money follows. It's kind of a concept of generosity. The more you give, the more you get. So the more your cause is good, the more that you don't have to worry about money, the money will follow. So, for example, we always need money for taking on legal cases, but that takes some fundraising, but you only have 30 days to sue. Right now, I'm in the middle of talking to lawyers about suing on a most recent judgment of the decision by Health Canada. I only have 30 days. I don't have the money in the bank account but I know that this is a cause that people care about, and we're a charity, so we'll be able to get donations, and that it'll come if
So please
and a lot
put
of people want to
so
do.
because we GoFundMe, we're happy to support. So please, give us a link so that if our listeners want to support, because I know there's lots of people who believe in what you're doing and want to know that their kids are eating Cheerios that don't have glyphosate in it, right?
Thank you.
So
Well, we're on Canada. Canada helps. Safe Food Matters. Canada helps,
okay,
and you get
fantastic.
a tax receipt.
Fantastic. We'll put it in our show notes. Canada Health Safe Food Matters, but don't worry, community, we're going to put it in our show notes. Okay, a book or resource that has deeply influenced your thinking.
Sorry, I missed your question there. Sorry.
A book or a resource that's deeply influenced your thinking.
Buddhism
Ah,
as a resource, because it teaches high road, and high road is the way to win. And I learned that in law. If you want to, getting to yes it's kind of a bad deal for both sides, but it worked. It's the high road is considers both sides, and it's not win lose, it's win win.
Okay, one thing you wished more women knew about food and health.
How much it impacts us, our ability to think and our ability to live. Because when one eats whole food, you feel better, and your life changes when you feel better.
Yeah, you know what? Until you know what that feels like in your body, you're so right, Mary Lou. Okay, what's inspired you to keep going on tough days?
I would say stupidity, but managing managing my expectations. Like I know it's a long road, and I really believe in the principle of the law and that the truth will out with it. It just takes a long time. And the truth is, like for example, glyphosate moves into seeds. No matter how much Health Canada says, oh, you don't have to worry about that, or it's just weed control, blah blah. That's what happens, and the science now shows that some of the stuff that I wrote about in 2017 is right. It just took 7 years, but the truth comes out in science and in law.
Eventually.
So
Eventually.
yeah, so
And
so
I
my
think
belief in that is what sustains me.
well, I was going to say that Martin Luther King said, "What the arc of justice can be very long," right? There you go. All right, finish the sentence. Last question. High earning women should always
Give back, give, be present. No, be present. Not be afraid.
be
Be
present.
present. Be who you are. That's not one word.
That's okay. You're a lawyer. We shouldn't expect that you can't do one word. What am I
Yeah.
thinking?
Can I put a caveat on that? And if that doesn't work, yeah.
Exactly. That's
I
what we
was
expect from
joking.
lawyers. You did say that. Well,
Yeah.
anyway, Mary Lou, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story and your mission with us today. Honestly, your courage, your persistence remind us that wealth really isn't just financial. It's about health, as you said, mental clarity, empowerment, and really that impact we leave on our communities. When I said high earning women should always, you said give back and be present. And I think both can be true at the same time, especially because you're a lawyer. You can say more than one thing. So it's all good.
Exactly. Yeah.
To our listeners, if you want to learn more about Mary Lou's work and how you can support Safe Food Matters Inc., check out the links in the show notes. We'll have the link to Canada Helps if you want to help her with her fight with Health Canada. And as I said, I hope today's episode, community, really inspires you to be brave, whatever that looks like for you. Do you need to be brave in your business, in challenges that are impacting your community right now? Just like Mary Lou did. So thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the High Earning Woman podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please share it with another powerful woman in your circle. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more inspiring stories and practical insights. And again, feel free to also DM us if you need support on your financial journey. Remember, money is power and you deserve to own yours. So until next time, keep building, keep earning, and keep living the life that you deserve. Be in touch soon, high earning community. See you later. Thanks again, Mary Lou.
Thank you, Jackie. It was great.
Chatter is stealing, she's fierce and untamed. Boss is a title, wealth is a gain. Power in heels or sneakers on deck. Respect comes easy when you earn that check. From boardrooms to businesses, she's got finesse. You like? Right here, built for success. She's a bad